Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of Reading the Stars. This is a podcast on astrology, basically astrology here. So, welcome to the first installment, the debut of our first astrology podcast. So. Welcome, Tara. How you doing today? So pretty much I want to talk about a bit about like my start with astrology and things like and things about astrology, introductions about astrology here in so we do have so let me tell you about this will be a weekly podcasting. This will happen weekly. It will happen pretty much it'll happen every Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And that's about as much it's going to happen weekly here. That's a podcast. So it's gonna be a weekly thing where I talk about astrology and things that are associated with astrology. Social current events are associated with astrology. Um, that's what I want to talk about here. With astrology, and this is further from the free live tarot. So um I do want to so this is the debut podcast. A lot of people were telling me to start an astrology podcast, and I gave them what I wanted. So we're gonna have an astrology podcast every week. So that's the whole thing. So I want to talk to you all about my journey in astrology, my intro to astrology, and I want to talk about many different astrologies in in this first episode. So pretty much going to go through an introduction here. So first on the key here is I want to talk to you about how I got into astrology, and a little bit about myself that got into astrology. So about so I first got into astrology two years ago. This was around like 20 this was like around late 2018, early 2019. I got into astrology. So it was 2 years to the day that I got into astrology today. Um so I pretty much began to study about astrology. Um and also, reason why I got into astrology is because I got into it because I had a friend that I have a friend that's into astrology, and she introduced it to me. And so now I pretty much got into it after I heard about it, after I got into it. Um so I began to understand the um the concepts of astrology, many different forms of astrology. I do know how to how to read birth charts. I do know how to read like transits, things that happen in transits, and stuff like that. So so astrology to me is pretty much like clarifying that God really works within us, that that we are designed on a grander scheme of things, and that we have a lot to do in astrology. Um so I'll just like start off here with the whole thing about astrology. So um astrology, so there's many misconceptions of astrology. There are many misconceptions in astrology. Um, one of those being that astrology is astrology is like the devil worship, things like that. I don't believe that to be the case about astrology. I do believe that God really made astrology to a point where he said let me create the stars, and let them be a sign of things to come, which is basically astrology. Astrology is like foretelling events, foretelling energies that are hidden amongst the world, with these planetary energies that happen, these uh energies of the signs, with astrology here. So I just want to talk about astrology here. So the introduction to astrology. So pretty much astrology is the study of how the stars work on us, how the stars work in our lives, and how they affect our daily life, and how our personality is shaped through astrology. By the way, I use astrology as a form of as a form of self improvement. I use it as a form of life coaching in that regards. So pretty much for me, astrology is a way for me to help people a way for me to help people understand what their gifts are, what their what they need to work on, what they need to do in their life to be more um to be more fulfilled, to be more of a higher version of themselves with that. So there are many astrologies, and so there are mundane astrology, natal astrology, which is basically psychology wrapped into astrology. We have horary astrology, we have electional astrology, we have Hellenistic astrology, Vedic, medieval, um, everything in between that. So So mundane astrology is astrology of current events. Is the astrology of the collective of a particular nation, a particular group of people. So it's very different from natal astrology and any other astrology. So horary is basically getting the energies off of current events, things that happen in the world. Also, getting the energies off of a birth of a nation, off of a birth of a company, a birth of a state or something like that, a government organization. So that's what mundane astrology is. Now on to natal astrology. So natal astrology is a bit more compact here. It's more like focused on one person. So this is basically psychology wrapped into astrology. This is my favorite type of astrology. Um so basically with natal astrology is that it is the energy, the planetary energies of the time that you were born, and that has an effect on the particular person that was born at that time. So it shows that so this is all about it's all about like psychology. It's all about like um about things that happen in our lives. So that's what natal astrology is. Getting the particular energy the off of the person, and bringing it into focus. Now on to horary astrology. So horary astrology is when you use astrology, when you use these particular energies to answer a yes or no question, to find stuff, to understand who to understand where things are, and what's the energy off of that. So that's horary astrology. Now on to electional astrology. So electional astrology is basically astrology based on particular points in the on a particular event in the future. Could be a mundane event. It could be an event that happens in your life, such as like a wedding, such as like going to school, like starting school, um, starting work. You can do that with electional astrology. So basically, basically um, it's all about future events that happen in the astrology. So that's electional. Now now with that's basically the basic forms of astrology. Um and I do want to start off with a with a understanding of what astrology is. So I'm just going to go onto my slides. So I have a presentation on on astrology here. So let's see here. Any minute now. Also, if any, so more on this podcast. I do plan on having more. I do plan on having um another person on here to discuss astrology with me as well. So uh if you can let me know who is an astrologer and get me to connect to that person. Let me know. So because this podcast would be a lot better if I had another person to um to do this podcast with. So if anybody has any suggestions of who they 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 want on this podcast, I'd be open for suggestions. Okay. So basically this is my this is my presentation here. So I'm just gonna go onto full screen. All right. So this is hmm. So this is basically I'm gonna be doing more basic forms, more of a basic look at astrology here. So this is I'm just gonna start off with this. So what is astrology here? So astrology is a study of the stars and how the heavenly bodies influence the world around us. Otherwise, otherwise understanding what energies do impact our lives. These like understanding the archetypes, understanding what the archetypes are that happen in our lives here. So that's what astrology is studying how how these planetary bodies affect our lives and how these influence us. So astrology is a language that can be hard to understand. Not everybody understands what astrology is. Not everybody knows about astrology. It's it's a bit complex. Astrology can be complex in that sense. so that's why it could be, so that's why it's a bit misunderstood, a bit more misunderstood, um, in terms of what goes on, in terms of what goes on with the with the heavenly energies in this in this world. So astrology is an ancient and spiritual practice that goes back thousands of years. So this is the most basic, this is the most ancient, um, this is a most basic most ancient spiritual practice that has been done since decades, thousands of years. People have been looking at the stars and trying to interpret meanings of the stars, trying to interpret events that have happened in, like, in daily life, that have happened in, like, let's say, um the fall of empires, the rise of empires, the rise of and the changing and the changes of power. That's how people in ancient times used astrology, is that they used it just to predict who was going to come into power, who was going. So when are we supposed to water the crops? When are we supposed to cultivate? Astrology is used in that way. So it's used to help make decisions, and astrologers help people to make decisions on what's happening in our daily lives. Now, there are many forms of astrology, like I said about natal astrology, horary astrology, mundane astrology, electional, Hellenistic, Vedic, things like that. So when considering astrology, the planets, the signs, the houses, and aspects have an influence on the world. So those are the four main points here in this in astrology here. So today I'm going to discuss about let's get on to another slide. So today I will cover mainly the planets. So this series will cover the planets, the signs, the houses, and the aspects, and most of all, reading a birth chart. So people that want to read a birth chart can um, can really understand how to read a birth chart from this series. So so today we're just gonna cover the planets. This is the pilot episode. So I will rename this to the pilot and unlocking the planet. Um so here are the planets. So we're going to get into the planets right now. So this is part one. So the planets represent the experience of our lives. What is happening in our life? Like, planets are signifiers of what is happening in our life. So then there are 13 planets. There are 13 planets on the birth chart. These are the Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, Chiron, North Node, South Node, and Black Moon Lilith. So they are also denoted by glyphs in the chart. So these planets have most ancient, they they have symbols here. So now we get into the first one, the sun. So in more detail after I do this series, I'm gonna do more in depth about the planets and how they affect our daily lives. So first one we come into is the sun. So the sun here represents our core personality and life force. It, it it represents focus. It represents the ego. It represents the self. So the outermost self here. So how we express how we express our desires. So so it is an outward projection of our personality, and it's the most active planet. So the sun represents our needs in life, and the sun rules Leo. So and also the sun is the center of the solar system. It's the center. It rules the zodiac, and so it's basically the center of the universe. So who we are at our center. That's what the sun is. And the sun is one of the two luminaries, which is the sun and the moon. Not necessarily is the sun a planet in terms of astrology. I mean, in terms of astronomy, but in terms of astrology, it's more of like a planet. So 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 we have two luminaries, which are the sun and the moon. So that is the sun. Now we get into the moon. So the moon represents our emotions. It represents our soul. It represents who we are at our soul, our and our in our introverted part of ourself. It also represents our instincts, how we are instinctually. Also it represents our relationship with our mother. So also in mundane astrology, it represents the people, the people of this particular group, of this particular government organization. So and then also it represents the inner desires of life. So what we want out of life. And so then the moon rules Cancer, which is basically an emotional sign here. And also the moon is one of the two luminaries, like I discussed about with the sun and the moon being both two luminaries in being both one of the two luminaries in astrology. So now we get into Mercury. So Mercury is associated with the mind, communication, logic, and intellect. So Mercury is named after the Roman god, the Roman messenger god, Mercury, otherwise known as in Greek, otherwise known in Greek as in Greek mythology, Hermes. So Mercury is a fast-moving planet, so it indicates like, so it's a quick planet, quick messages that go around. So Mercury is associated with the mind, communication, logic, and intellect. Also travel. Also short-term travel here. So yeah, it's associated with roads and ground travel, and also represents education. So in that sense, so it rules. So Mercury rules Gemini and Virgo in astrology. So that's Mercury. Now we get into Venus. So Venus represents love and relationships. So Venus is the goddess of love in Roman mythology, and also it also it also so it also represents beauty in the arts. Also it represents also represents money, finances that come in. So it also values what we value. So that's Venus. It also represents fertility, basically motherhood in that sense. And Venus rules Taurus and Libra. So it rules both of those signs. Now let's get into Mars. So Mars is the planet of war. Also, Mars is named after the Roman god of war, which is Mars, or Greek or the Greek form of the god of war is Ares or Ares. Um, so this so Mars represents conflict. It represents anger, ambition, force, sexuality, power. It shows us our power, how we come into power, what makes us what makes us angry, what motivates us. So Mars rules Aries and Scorpio. So that's Mars. Now we get into Jupiter. So Jupiter is an expansive planet and the largest planet in the largest planet of the solar system. So Jupiter is one of the slower moving planets. Jupiter is named after the Roman god Jupiter. Basically the god of the Roman god of all things, the god of gods. Is what Jupiter is. He is and the Greek form of Jupiter is Zeus. So in a sense, that is also Zeus there. So Jupiter represents fortune and abundance, expansion, world travel, global travel, Otherwise, I would say long distance travel. So that's what Jupiter is. It represents faith as well. How we get into higher places. So that's Jupiter. Also, Jupiter rules Sagittarius and Pisces. So that's what Jupiter is about. Is all about fortune, expansion, optimism, and faith. So it also good luck. So that is Jupiter. Now we get into Saturn. Also, another thing to mention about Jupiter is that it's a benefic planet. So it affects. So it really affects us positively in our lives. Now we get into Saturn. So Saturn is a planet of restriction. So Saturn is the planet that's named. So Saturn is a Roman god of time, or in the Greek mythology is Kronos. So Saturn is a planet of restriction. It's a planet of limitations, struggles, disabilities. It's a retractive planet. So instead of Jupiter being expansive, Saturn retracts. So also Saturn shows, along with our Saturn return, it shows that things will get better as time progresses. So that's that. And it also represents structures. Structures and discipline. That's what Saturn is. Also, Saturn rules Capricorn and Aquarius. Those are the two signs that Saturn rules. Now let's get into Uranus, the outer planets. So basically, the Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, and Jupiter and Saturn are traditional planets. They're the inner planets. Now we get into the more generational planets, or the outer planets. So we have now we get into Uranus. Uranus is a revolutionary planet. It's a technological planet as well. Represents technology, represents sudden changes, innovation, idealism, free thinking, new stuff, different stuff, unexpected changes, surprises, and that's what Uranus is. Uranus in modern astrology rules Aquarius. So that's Uranus. It also, Uranus is a generational planet. So one of the generational planets. Now we get into Neptune. Wait, Neptune. There we go. So Neptune is the planet of mystery. It's a planet that it represents intuition, spirituality, and it represents illusions, some imperfections that we have, confusion, things that we have to sacrifice and have faith in. And Neptune rules Pisces. So that's Neptune. Now let's get into and Neptune is another generational planet, one of the three outermost planets. Now we get into Pluto. So Pluto is a planet of transformation. It's a planet of death, endings, destruction. Pluto shows how we transform the world around us. It also shows us our power as well. So, and it's a cold planet, and it's also the slowest moving planet. So this is a generational planet, the generational planet that represents all the generations. So it also represents how we come into rebirth with Pluto. Now let's get into Chiron. So now we get into Chiron. So Chiron is an asteroid. Not really exactly a planet, but Chiron is an asteroid. Chiron shows how we are wounded, and it shows how we heal. So where we are wounded and where we can heal. And it shows how we can heal each other, depending on the aspect of the planet here. So that's Chiron. Now we get into the lunar nodes. So we have the lunar nodes here. So the lunar nodes represent a point that the moon crosses during eclipse. So the north. So now we get into the north node. So the north node shows us our life purpose. It shows us what we should strive towards, and what we are inspired by. Also shows us where we are going. What is the road that we're going to take in life? What is our meaning in life? That's the north node. The south node represents karmic lessons. It represents karmic baggage, past experiences, things that we are comfortable with, and also things that we might return to. So the south node being the root. The south node is being the root and a place of comfort, and shows us our past here. So those are the lunar nodes. Now, lastly, we come into the Black Moon Lilith. So the Black Moon Lilith is not a real planet or a moon. It's just basically a point of the apogee of the moon. So Black Moon Lilith shows us our deeper hiddenmost part of our personality, shows us our dark side, and it shows us the mystery of ourselves. So those are the planets. Those are the planets in this in this. So that is the planets. So basically, now next week we will get into the signs. So that is all for this podcast. Thank you all for watching. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. And hit the notification icon to receive future live streams. And also, I have readings available for you. If you want a private reading for me, I do. If you want a birth chart reading for me, please sign up with the form and I will get back to you as soon as possible. So that's the podcast. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. God bless you all, and have a great rest of the night. And also, guys, if you guys have any astrologers or guests that you want to recommend, please suggest them to me. So, thank you. God bless you all, and have a great rest of the night.